Hello, boys and girls. Today we are going to be doing lesson 3, which is about the order of operations. Now, we talked about this earlier in the school year with 4th grade level things. Now we're going to step it up to 5th grade level. So let's talk about the order of operations. This is when you have an equation that has multiple things to do, like it might have adding and subtracting or multiplying, adding and dividing. When it has multiple steps to do, there's a specific order you must do it in. If you don't do it in the correct order, you most likely will not get the right answer. So let's talk about that order. Here is the list of the order, and you might remember this from earlier this year. Parentheses is first, parentheses, exponents, which we haven't used exponents in 4th grade. You will later in 5th grade, and we'll talk briefly about what that means. But parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. I want you to notice that parentheses and exponents are written first parentheses, then exponents. That's because in the order of operations, the first thing you do is anything that is in parentheses, okay? So that's the first step. Then the next step is to solve any exponents. But multiplication and division, I wrote those next to each other. That's because you don't first do all your multiplication, then do all of your division. That's not how it works. Multiplication and division are equal to each other. So you do them in whatever order they're written. So if you have multiply, then divide, then you multiply, then divide. But if division is written first, you do that first. Let's take a look at an example.
Looking at this, we have 12 divided by 4 times 5. We would do 12 divided by 4 first because it's listed first. So 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 3 times 5 is 15.
Now moving down to addition and subtraction, it's the same thing as multiplication and division. After you finish doing all the multiplying and dividing, then you go down and do all of the adding and subtracting. And just like multiplication and division, those are equal to each other. So whatever order they are written in, that's the order you do them with adding and subtracting, okay? Now, there's a little phrase that we use to help us remember this order. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. So you can remember that by saying, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So if you remember that little phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, it will help you remember this order. You can also, I recommend on the top of your paper when you're working on these kind of problems, write PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. P-E-M-D-A-S. That will help you. I actually had another idea of how we could remember this order.
PEMDAS, we could say pandemic eventually must desist, which is another way of saying stop. And I couldn't think of anything for the A and the S. Awesome sauce. All right, now, before you laugh too hard at me, I know it's a little cheesy, but see if you can come up with something better. It's not as easy as it looks. Put something in the comments section down below.
So now that we've studied the order, let's try a problem together on this whiteboard. So I wrote PEMDAS at the top. That's, again, a little thing that you can write at the top of your page to help you. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is parentheses. And what I recommend, especially while you're learning this, is we're going to rewrite the equation after we've solved each step. So let's see what that looks like. I'm solving what's in the parentheses first, so that would be 12 minus 10. So I'm going to solve that. 12 minus 10 would be 2. Now I'm going to rewrite the rest of the equation exactly the way it is now that I've solved this first step. So 6 divided by was in the parentheses, 12 minus 10, plus 3 times 8. So I did my parentheses. Now we move on to exponents. We are not talking about exponents quite yet. Let me just give you a little side note about what exponents are.
So an exponent is a number that shows how many times to multiply a number by itself. So for example, 2 with the little 3 means 2 to the 3rd power, which would be 2 times 2 times 2, which would be 8. So that little 3 is an exponent.
So we haven't learned much about exponents yet. That's what they look like, but let's move on. We don't have any exponents here, so let's move on to multiplication and division. Remember that those two, we do them in whatever order they're written in first. So I see a division and I see a multiplication. So first I'm going to do what came first, and the division happens to come first here. So I'm going to do 6 divided by 2. Now I'm going to solve that and rewrite the rest of the equation the way it is. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, took me a second there, plus 3 times 8. So I solved this step. First I solved this step and wrote it here. The answer was 2. Then I rewrote the rest of the equation. Now I'm solving this step. I wrote it here and wrote the rest of the equation the way it is. Now I'm still on my multiplication division step, and I know that we have some addition here, but we're not going to solve that first. We have to solve the multiplication first, according to our order. So we're going to do 3 times 8, and I'll write my answer here. That's 24. And now I'm going to do 3 plus 24, which at the end, let me write that 3 a little straighter. 3 plus 24, which would give me 27. So if you do it properly here, let me lift that up so you can see, 27. So if you do it properly here, what we end up with is kind of an upside down pyramid. It's really wide at the top, and every step I solve, it gets a little narrower because I've solved one part of it. So let's take a look at a few more problems together before you try some on your own.
So in these problems, you are not going to have to actually solve it. You're just going to say the order that the operation should be done in. So here we have 4 plus 5 times 2. But the 4 plus 5 is in parentheses. So we actually do that first, even though multiply comes first normally in the order. So we would add, then multiply. Now pause the video and see if you can figure out the order of this one on your own. This one you would subtract first because that is in parentheses, then multiply, then last you would add. And in case you wanted to figure out the totals, here's what they would be. Now I want you to pause the video and see if you can figure out this one on your own. Then when you're ready, hit play. Don't forget the order, PEMDAS. So underline each part, solve it, and then when you're ready, hit play to see how I solved it. So first I did 12 plus 8 because that is in parentheses, so that would be 20. And then I copied the rest divided by 2 times 3. Then I did 20 divided by 2 because that came first, so that would be 10 times 3, which is 30. So this equation equals 30. Now I want you to pause the video and solve both of these on your own. When you're ready, hit play, and I will show you how to work them out. But really try to work them out on your own first.
So we've done a few problems together. There are 2 things I want to recommend. Please do these things as you're practicing, okay? Because this can be a little confusing if you don't. First of all, write PEMDAS at the top of your page to help you remember the order. Second, every time you're going to solve a step, underline what you're going to do, and then solve it and rewrite the whole equation the way it was written, except the part you solved. Then underline the next thing you're going to do, solve that, then rewrite the rest of the equation. Please do that for every step as you're practicing how to do this, because that will give you a good idea of how to solve these. Okay? So, as always, if you have any questions with this, if you're struggling a bit, you can contact your math teacher, Mrs. Pepin, or me, and you can comment down below if you have questions as well. So I'll see you for the next lesson. Work hard, and don't forget to follow these steps. You can obviously rewind the video and rewatch it if you need a little help. Okay?